We're streaming. We're streaming live in 1080p.
Girl.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Saturday. It's 1 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. GMT. And me and Joe are hanging out on the internet.
We are. Here we are. On the interwebs. Yeah, so it's just you and me today. Last week we had a session with Murray, which was super fun. Murray Pulver, our longtime collaborator, producer, dear friend. I think we're going to do a little bit more of that kind of style thing moving forward. Right?
That's kind absolutely. Yeah. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah, we really enjoyed that. It was super fun to not be in the hot seat the entire time ourselves and put the pressure on somebody else. Answer some questions.
Hey, folks, people are rolling in here. Sean, good afternoon. Fellow Blues, popping in from France. Howdy.
Nice. The indie game dev. Yo, bros. Yo, dev. What's happening?
Sadly, I don't think I fixed our Facebook woes, Joe. I think the Bros Facebook page is still being stubborn.
Weird. Is it any different if we don't use my Facebook page? If we just go?
I don't know. We'll do some technical sleuthing later on. Pekka, good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah, nice. Cannot stop listening to Joey's music at work on Spotify every day on MRI Hospital. Wow, cool. Glad to know that I'm a part of your MRI day. Yeah, we do need catchphrases, Dave. Well, we were thinking obviously the quote I think originates from Step Brothers, but what's your favorite thing to do? Karate in the garage? Yep. And when Dave and I were kids, particularly when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle live action movie came out, this thing, I remember watching that movie and getting so fired up, and then the two of us just kicking the living snot out of each other after watching the movie, and it just kind of became this thing like, you want to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and then do karate in the living room? So, and then that, of course, with Step Brothers turned into Karate in the Garage. And so we're kind of thinking of calling these Saturday sessions Karate in the Garage, because that's kind of how it feels,
Totally.
So
yeah, let us know what you think of the proposed title. Dad's in the house. Daddy-o, how are you, man? How was your week? Look forward to catching up with you on the phone right away.
Yeah, Dad and I were playing phone tag this week.
Yeah, we are in yet another state of lockdown for another 2 weeks here in Winnipeg. So we are, this is truly some of the most time that I spend with my brother all week. So glad to do it with, a whole pile of other friends on the internet.
Yeah, indeed. It's nice. We had a request for some pedal show style catchphrases. So like Dan and Mix is like, Dan goes, Dan here, and Mick goes, Mick here, hello. And so we got to come up with something like that.
Yeah, I think it'll happen pretty naturally.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So you know what, Dave? I kind of thought we've talked a lot about guitar stuff on Karate in the Garage, and Karate in the Garage with Joe and Dave Landreth. Welcome everybody. And
test driving a new title. That was Roberta's suggestion, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, Roberta, who is brilliant, who I mentioned in a live stream or two ago, that Roberta also named the High Road Fuzz. So she's 2 for 2. I gotta get her to help me name another pedal that is being worked on.
Ooh,
where was I going with all that? Oh yeah, so we talked a lot about guitars and influence. I feel like people have listened to me talk about all kinds of stuff, but we don't really talk much about your bass playing in great depth. Like people ask you about, your opinion on feel and tone and stuff, but we don't get into the dirt. Like who made Dave Landreth the bass player that he is? Because I feel like in a lot of ways you're an incredibly understated bass player, or like you don't necessarily play in a way that like you're not Bootsy where you're like it's this thing that there's you can't, it's unmistakable. You have to listen to Bootsy when he's playing bass. You have this really this really kind of understated style, but everybody that I know, everybody who's come in and played in the solo band where we play some bros tunes and they have to learn your bass lines, they always say the same thing. Like, holy man, like I slept on these bass lines, and now that I've had to learn them, like they are some of the coolest, most melodic. I've said this before. My favorite thing about your bass playing is you kind of go for this sort of fearless melodic thing, and you have this really beautiful way of sort of shaping the movement of something without kind of hitting you over the head with it. It's just like this really subtle thing that when it's not there, it's like, for example, the root movement in Made Up Mind, in the pre-chorus. No, I'm sorry. Yes, not Made Up Mind. Let It Lie. The root movement where we kind of go 2 minor 1, 2 minor 1, that kind of thing before the chorus comes in. And I've had now, let's see, Meg, John, Paul, Mick Murata. Who else has played bass in the solo band? I feel like there's one more. And and Dad has come in and played bass, and everybody has kind of come to the table playing that part slightly different. And it's always this thing where it's just like, I like what you're doing, but can you play it the way Dave plays it? Because there's something about the way that you make these little choices that are just really integral without it being like, a big flashing neon sign. So there's a question in here. My question is, who did you listen to? Who are your favorite people to listen to as a bass player? Like not as a songwriter, not as a singer, not even like, I'm talking pure bass nerd. Like what are the things, like what brought that to the table? What brought that melodicism to the table? And like, right. Was there a moment when you realized like, oh, hey, if I really just go for this, cool things happen? Or was it just something that just sort of happened on its own?
Well, first of all, I didn't know that we were going to step into the Saturday and I was going to get an ego bath, but it's fantastic. So you're very sweet, Joey. This was not premeditated. This is off the cuff and I'm loving it. And yeah, I don't like, I listened to, I don't think I listened to it like when I was really young and I was first starting. I listened to some of like the sort of typical bass players, which is like Jacko and Marcus, Jacko Pastorius and Marcus Miller, guys like that, Victor Wooten. Like I was really into that sort of the flashy stuff, which is what you're attracted to early on. But I think like the biggest chunk of my bass education came from really it was all the people that I played with growing up. So the biggest influence was Dad right out of the gate, was just like watching. And for those of you that don't know, the elder Landreth, Wally, our dad, is a fierce bass player with a killer groove, great sound, real monster. And when we were growing up, dad was among other things, was a working bass player around town and touring and stuff, and played in blues bands and toured around in blues bands, that kind of thing. And so the biggest lesson that we were always learning was less is more, less is more, less is more. So I've always approached my bass playing as like a foundational thing. Like, how can I lay the bricks for the song in a way that doesn't draw attention to what I'm doing? Because I think that like my favorite kind of bass playing is the one that marries the rhythm section to the harmony instruments. Like I see like the bass is the bridge between those things, where like rhythm is really crucial, but also playing to and within the harmony and sort of melding those two things is really important. And then, like I had sounds that I really loved. I love the way Pino's bass sounds, and I love the way Willie Weeks sounds. I love the way Nathan East sounds. I love 70s R&B recordings, and those are some of the tones. And I never got flashy. I never went that way. I like early on, I dabbled with some of that stuff, but it was never really my interest. I always felt like my biggest high was being on the bandstand and locking in with the musicians on stage and like finding that trench, like that sort of transcendental place that you can get to when a groove is just so thick. And like that was always that was the height of my musical nirvana, was getting to that place and trying to get there as much as you can and spend as much of your time every night in that zone. And then the melodic stuff, I think that I know what you're talking about, and it is, and when I play it, it's exactly what it's like, go, and then go, I don't know where I'm at, and I hope I get back to something that makes sense by the one.
Oftentimes you make that face. I think a great example, if folks are maybe not entirely sure of what I'm talking about, is the bass line off the record Whiskey, on the song Gone Girl, which, do I have a guitar here? Of course I do. Where here? Which, started off as like, it was that kind of groove. And when the bass came in, you did this thing, like it was the first thing you did. Well, we didn't even really play through the song so much. I think maybe we read down the chart once, and then you came in with this boom, boom, whip, boom, 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 and that became like, that kind of became the hook of the song. It's not like there's, to me, without that moment. And I don't know, I think that's a perfect example. Of course, it's not like the most melodic thing in the world, but it has this movement to it that if it's not there, the song is it's kind of ruined for me. And I think that sort of like that same sort of like fearless exploration of melody, it's just this X factor in the way that you play, and you never know what's going to come to the table, because, and I think I've also learned to really not tell you what to play, because usually when I tell you what to play, it immediately cuts that off. And then there's all, every now and then I'll say, hey, don't play that inversion,
Yeah.
Normally it's like, if we're landing on the tonic triad of the key, don't play it in first inversion unless we're going to another place. That's my only like hard rule for bass movement. Everything else is like wide open, but just don't play 1/3 unless we're going to the 4 chord.
Yeah. But you know what? There's a lot of examples on the bro stuff where I do that, and it is intentional. I think there's so many fun things to talk about. One is like, I think that's what's special about being in the band, is that it is really a place for both of us to be in our sandbox and sort of explore very freely. I don't think either of us really tell each other what to do musically, if at all, really. And I think maybe that is the sound of the band, is that it's just you and I doing whatever the hell we want to do with our instruments and with our faces. And that's what our band sounds like a little bit.
Yeah.
The root movement thing is, it's like, I really do think of it as kind of a novel trick. And it's one of the few that I have. I don't have a lot up my sleeve, but that's one of them. And I really love, and it's hardly like reinventing the wheel. I mean, guys have been doing this. Bach has been doing, like it goes all the way back. But like, for the bass players out there, experiment with landing on different chord tones and seeing the reaction on the musicians' faces that you're playing with, and you start to get a feel for the power of the instrument in the setting. Like, you can really change the way harmony feels by outlining different chord tones. And I love using 5s and 3s, but I also really love using 2s, as an interesting chord tone to land on. It's not a chord tone, but like, that's an interesting piece of tension. And yeah, there's a lot of fun exploration there. And you can really push and pull things around in terms of like the emotional impact of what it sounds like to not have that super solid resolve of hitting the tonic, hitting the one. Yeah. Well, you've said a lot of really nice things there, man. That makes me feel fantastic. Super, super sweet of you.
Hey, man, I'm just saying it how it is and what I think. It's really, really interesting. Sean Watkins is asking, is using a bass line to harmonize a thing, or is it more important to emphasize actual root notes? And that's kind of exactly what we're talking about with this sort of, what I said about sort of Dave, inverting the chords and stuff like that. And that's kind of what we're talking about. I think a great example of how you can change the root movement of just a normal chord progression and change the way it feels is in that Jason Isbell song. Is it 24 Frames? Where the bass player, he plays all the major triads over their own 5.
Yeah.
So like when he goes, can you hear this? The piano?
Yeah.
So when he plays the 1 chord, he plays it. And then the 4 chord, like it just like changes how you perceive that. And that's what I love about your bass playing is you're not afraid to take chances with the root movement. And I think that there's like maybe sometimes there's this perception of like sacredness with not messing with the root movement, but like you can do so much. And we were talking about chord inversions 2 streams ago, and I talked a lot about some like basic sort of triadic voice leading, and that this is kind of talking about that same thing, but like in a band setting, and how like Dave and I can sort of mess with the way a chord progression feels by just him making different choices while I'm playing the same chord changes. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Marty, our dear buddy Marty. There's 2 things he said that I really like. The first thing is ba wappa papa wappa papa is a melody for bass players. And in a hurricane of C major, it can whisper A minor 7, which is very true. So
yeah, that's another really fun. That's a really fun move too, is to play the relative minor of your major chord and watch. Like my favorite, I don't do it in our band because it's a little too gauche and it's not musical comedy. But sometimes when I'm on the pop gig, like doing the event band stuff, which I don't do a ton of, but occasionally do. I really love like when a big pop band, happy, I don't know, Sweet Caroline or something, and the band does a big fat diamond on the 1 chord, but I'll play the relative minor in the bass and watch the band leader turn around and just shoot daggers at you. But it's like, it's so fun to end, to end a song like that on this really like kind of sad note.
Yeah,
it's a good trick. Good. The last thing I would add to that is just that, like, and again, this is something that Dad taught me early on. And I think there's actually like a life lesson in here, if I could be so bold. But like, as a bass player, our job is to lay that foundation, is to be part of that groove, is to support the song. But you also like, you don't need to entirely disappear. You can choose your moments when you have something to say and you feel inspired or compelled. I mean, for me, it's a lot like when we're playing live, those moments are usually like moments of inspiration. And I don't often have any idea what I'm going for. I just feel inspired. So I reach for something. And if you do that every bar, or even every 4 or 8 bars, nobody's going to pay attention. You're just going to be stepping on the music. You're going to be drawing too much attention to yourself. And it's kind of selfish playing. But if you really like pick and choose your moments, then you're really adding something with that. You potentially can. If you stick the landing, you can really add something.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that with life too. It's like, spend more of the time listening than you do speaking, and you really like it. It's not going to hurt you. And that's kind of what it is. It's like sit back, listen, support the music, find the groove, find the substance to the music, serve the song. And then when you feel like you have something to add, people will listen. And it's way more effective than just shredding over everything.
Totally. Love that. Digi Pet Design says, "Hey Joey, could you show us your faux pedal steel type thing?" Sure. I don't really do a lot of that these days, but let's try it.
I love it. For those of you just joining us, in case you're not hip to it, this is Dave and Joe taking questions Saturday afternoon. This is what we do, and so feel free to launch some questions into the comments, and we'll take your lead, see what you're curious about.
Yeah, and we're calling it Karate in the Garage with Dave and Joe. So welcome to Karate in the Garage. Did you pet design? Do you mean the guitar with the benders, or just like some of those pedal steel type licks that I try and steal? I guess I can maybe demonstrate both those on the same guitar.
Yeah, while you're talking, I'm going to answer another question here.
Do it.
Raleigh, pardon me if I'm not saying it right, what about Lee Sklar's playing? Was he an inspiration? He was, but I didn't realize it only until recently. I had no idea that he played so many of my favorite bass parts, and had played on so many of my favorite records. And a funny story, I was doing a gig in Winnipeg, where we're from. I was doing a lunch hour thing with our buddy Roman, who's incredible. And we were doing an outdoor gig in the summer, and it's like Tuesday lunchtime, and this dude walks by with a backpack and Crocs and this big gray beard, and I'm like, that's crazy. This guy is a dead ringer for Leland Sklar. I swear, like, this guy's got to be. He must get bugged about it all the time because he looks just like Leland Sklar. Guy hangs out, listens to a couple of tunes, walks over to my side of the stage, kind of puts his arm on the stage as an outdoor thing, so he's just kind of chilling, and then buggers off. And then I found out a couple of weeks later that he was in town playing with somebody that same day. So it, in fact, was Leland Sklar. And had I known that, I probably would have clammed up and fallen right off the stage. But okay, Joey, show us.
Can you hear that okay?
Yep.
Is it too loud or too quiet?
There's no such thing. Certainly not too loud. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this is what the Digi Pet Design was talking about, but they're like, in the early days of Bros, I explored like trying to doing those kind of things. So like on the recording of Firecracker, for example, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. But this guitar actually has some benders on it, so you can kind of get. Yeah, so that's
yeah.
kind of what it does.
And that was all over Forgiveness, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't have the delay up and running, but the part for that is this. Or that's the chorus. The main part is. And that's all it is. So it's just taking a major triad. Sorry, I'm getting a little clipping that's on my end, I think. A major triad and moving the 6 up, or the 5 up to a 6. So, yeah. That's what that's all about. I got
one.
Okay.
Somebody's asking about the red bass.
Oh, yeah.
Which I happen to have here. Actually, half of my basses are at Joe's studio, and half of them are here. Somebody asked about the Duesenberg earlier, and I don't have it handy, so but I will talk about the red bass because it's right here. And this is my dad's bass, and he gave it to me when I was a kid, and I've had it ever since, and I love it, and it has traveled the world with me so many times, and it looked a lot nicer than this when he gave it to me. I promise. And I'm sorry about that, Dad. I'm hard on things. But is there a blend setting that is your go-to with that bass? Front pickup all the way. I don't actually use the back pickup unless I'm trying to go for like a real modern sound, because it's a little hi-fi when you do that. And then I use the bridge pickup if I'm trying to go for like more of a jazz bass kind of thing. But this bass is tremendously versatile and I love it. And she's my baby. 2 generations of Landreth rocking it with this thing.
Yeah. Martin.
Good cue.
Martin, my buddy from the West Coast, originally from Winnipeg, lives in Vancouver. I don't have his address, otherwise I'd give it to you. No, I'm just kidding. After discovering Ry Cooder's Bop Till You Drop record, unreal, agree. Which of his records next? Get Rhythm is another one of my favorites.
Heavy.
The record that he made for the Buena Vista Social Club is really, really great. What else? Geez. You know what? Let me just pull up my my Cooder collection, because there's so many good ones. Bop Till You Drop is like top probably 3. Get Rhythm is up there as well. Honestly, the new one is really, really great. What are you laughing at?
Short of Pete Townsend, how do players manage to beat up guitars that much? Are you chopping vegetables on it at the hotel between shows? Just shy. Oh man. Yeah, belt buckles, and man, they just get thrown around. I've lost track of how many times my bass has taken like a nosedive off of a stand at a show.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish I was kinder to my guitars, and I'm just not. But our dad is a really capable luthier, so as rough as we can be on them, he's usually there to spruce them up pretty quick. So
yeah,
we get over it.
I will add these 2 records to the Ry Cooder list. Mambo Sinuendo, which is actually an instrumental record that he made with a fella named Manuel Galban, and it's basically like I want to say Mexican inspired surf music. So it's just kind of got like a little bit of, I don't know enough about like sort of traditional Mexican music to be able to tell you exactly sort of what genres, but there's just that flavor of sort of south of the border, kind of almost Tex-Mex mixed with surf music, and it is phenomenal. It's such a fun record. And then the most recent one is Prodigal Son, and I love that.
Oh, it's so good. And that's kind of a return to form, but also like, oh, I love records like that, because I feel like as a huge fan, you get to see the whole, and if you know the discography, like when artists get to that level where there's like, it's all there, but it's also like you can hear the wisdom and the age and the grizzle, like all that awesome stuff feeds into that record. It's just oh man, I love that album. Big fan. I've been listening to that a lot.
Yeah.
The trenches on it are so thick. Oh.
Yeah. I like this. What made you pick orange chairs, Joey? It's vibrant, modern, and feng shui as fuck. Honestly, my wife and I picked out those chairs when we moved back to Winnipeg from Toronto, and it was kind of the first. It was the first purchase that we made that was like not sort of cheap, shitty, disposable furniture. So it was like they weren't super, super expensive, but they were not. They were also not super cheap. So it was like. It was kind of this moment. We picked these chairs out. We bought them. It was like, we are staying here because if we move, we have to take these friggin' things with us. And so, yeah, that's I can't say that I'm actually responsible for picking them. Anna picked them, and I love them. And then when I got the studio space, she said, you should take those with you because you need something to sit on over there. And so, yeah, they need to be reupholstered. They've been beat up by my cat. So if anybody knows an upholsterer in Winnipeg who will trade some upholstery work for, I don't know, maybe some guitar lessons or a recorded guitar track or something, Hit me up.
Wouldn't Rob do that? Rob and Dan?
Rob Waddell?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely he would. I just I don't have the money to pay somebody. I'm trying to, you know.
I see. You're trying to barter.
Yeah.
Joey, guitar. Oh, show him the tat. Yeah, Dad says show him the tattoo. He likes his chair so much. Oh yeah, just an excuse to flex.
Yeah, lots of people actually ask about that, like why I got those chairs tattooed, and it was because it meant something to me that buying those chairs just meant that we were making a permanent sort of move. We had moved home, and those chairs just kind of occupied a space for me in my mind. And originally, the tattoo idea was of a photo that Anna had taken that I wanted to have the whole photo tattooed. But the artist that I went to see sort of said, the size that you want it, I don't think we can make it look good that small. So what do you think about just doing the chair? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So that's the story behind the chair tattoo.
I love it.
It's a bit of a weird thing, but I love it. It means a lot to me, and every time I see it, I'm just reminded that, you know, I've got a place. So, yeah.
This is a cool question.
Okay.
From Anadi. Again, apologies if I'm not saying your name right.
Yeah. Look at that.
Hey guys, I love your music. Have you ever had tendonitis or any other hand pain issues caused by playing guitar and bass? Hope you have a great 2021. Get back to touring soon. Yes, that's such a cool question. We actually almost had to pull tour dates at one point. Joey, you were in such rough shape.
Mm-hmm.
You were in such bad shape. You could barely play. You could barely get through a night. It was so hard to watch on stage. You were in so much pain. When was that?
That was 20. I remember it was 20. I want to say 2014 or 2013. Whenever we played that big concert, it must have been 2014. It was a Christmas concert or Christmas time concert at the Park Theater. And it was also the same gig that we had the fake snow for. Remember that? And we did in the bleak.
Chris Ulrich was playing.
Yeah.
That gig will forever be on my mind. I'll never forget it because we had a friend help us out and brought a snow machine. Which looked,
man, it's going to be so magical. We're gonna turn on the snow machine during this really sensitive moment of this old Christmas hymn that we worked up, and like in the bleak midwinter is gorgeous. In the bleak midwinter, frost in it's gorgeous. And in this sensitive moment of the song, he turns the snow machine on, and it's just like, and it's also soap. So all of our gear was just covered in soap.
So sticky. It was the stickiest shit. I had no idea, and we just got like, it was a disaster. Like I was wiping stuff off of cables and guitars for like months after that. But the question is about pain, which I actually think is a fairly serious thing as a musician. Like,
yeah, let's talk about
it. And we were so lucky because remember what we did? We went and asked Steve Bell, and Steve Bell and Dave Zaglinski, who are kind of some musical and industry mentors of ours, actually bailed us out and put you in physio because we were broke at the time. The band was just getting started.
Yeah. And
they said, hey, we'll take care of you. And they made sure that Joey had physio.
So what ended up happening was I went to see a physiotherapist who gave a diagnosis that I was really uncomfortable with. And I should add, I'm absolutely not throwing shade on physiotherapy as a profession. It was just this particular instance. I got a diagnosis of like, I think they thought it was some kind of bone disease, and that it was like, I was going to maybe have to get some sort of bone graft, and I would be out of commission for months and months and months. And I was just like, man, I just feel like before we open up my arm and do surgery and graft a bone from my foot or something, I'm going to get a second opinion. And I ended up going to see an athletic therapist here in town that was recommended to me through Steve Broadhurst, who's another great Winnipeg musician, drummer, and friend of the band. And he said, you got to go see this guy, who I like. Funny enough, his mom taught us both grade 5 at École Provencher. And so anyways, and he was a substitute teacher one time. Anyway, I went to see him at Morfit here in Winnipeg, which is a gym and sort of spot. And I got in to see Claude and said, here's what's happening. This is what I do for a living. I know that you work on other musicians, and I just want to, I want to get an assessment because I've been told that, I've got something pretty serious going on in my wrist. And he said, well, I think just by looking at you, the way that you're sitting and your posture, I feel like it's probably more likely got to do with your neck and shoulder. And so we did some really, really serious, sort of deep tissue massage over the course of 6 weeks. I went to see him twice a week, which was kind of the max that he sort of recommended, because it's pretty extreme. It's not a relaxing massage. It's really painful, but he had me back up and running with more mobility than I had before. And still since, I still get a little bit sore, and it's almost always when I haven't been doing any kind of fitness stuff. I haven't been exercising or working out or stretching. And that's when my hands and wrists get sore. And so his diagnosis was, if you do this for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and you don't do anything else, then it eventually turns into this. And that's where you start to get some trouble. So I'm paraphrasing pretty significantly, but I would say if you're having some troubles with your hands or your arms or your shoulders, go and check out somebody who can do some deep tissue massage and see if that helps. It's very painful, very, very uncomfortable, but it changed my life. And since then, I've sent a lot of my musician friends to see him, and he's done really good things. Dave, you've seen some other folks to deal with shoulder issues as well. So
yeah, I've also had some pretty bad neck and shoulder things. I think it comes with playing guitars, playing basses, and particularly my number one bass is a very heavy bass too. So I went and had what do they call it? Dry needling done, which is a whole other kind of physical torture that's super, super unpleasant. It's like, it's a Western version of acupuncture, but it's used to create micro injuries in the muscle. So basically they go in with a needle and go pop, 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 and create this bruising effect inside the muscle, and it helps it heal or whatever. It's really uncomfortable, but it was the only thing that ever gave me any relief. Ultimately, I think what it comes from is some of it is the playing, and it's funny because like we'll go through stretches where we don't travel very much, and I'll start to loosen up and feel great, and my neck tension goes away, my shoulders stop bugging me. And then I'll sit in a van for 2 hours and I go right back to it as if I had just been on the road for 6 weeks. So it's like, it's the travel, I think. The travel and like hunching over a laptop in the back of a van and, in the airport looking at your phone. Like that's the stuff that kills me, I think, more than the playing.
Yeah, you put it all together though, and it's pretty, I think
it's a bad soup.
It's a bad soup. But yeah, I think a good thing to kind of keep in mind, and of course take this with a grain of salt because I'm not a healthcare professional. But if you spend a lot of time like this doing exercises that kind of open you up, definitely help. So Kevin Eichel, man, I got to call you back. I'm sorry, I missed your call the other day. I completely forgot to call you back, but I will call you.
Random question. I like it. Just popped in. Somebody from Twitter/Periscope. Yeah. In the early days, Joey, have you ever lost a slide and had to use something as a replacement?
No, but there were many spare slides in a variety of locations, including a few in the glove box of the tour van. Dave had a couple in his backpack. Ryan had in his stick bag. Yeah, I don't lose them anywhere near as much, but I think it's because I'm not a practicing alcoholic anymore. So
they don't disappear as quickly.
There's a direct correlation between over drinking and losing my shit, literally. Yeah.
Thomas is asking, Dave, do you have any go-to methods or gear for recording your bass? I don't do it. I mean, I'm really lucky because Joey has a really slam in studio. So now if I need to do any bass recording, I go there, or we do it with Paul in the big room. The odd time that I do have to do stuff, I really like, I have a Noble preamp, which is a really, really nice tube DI that I adore. And then I usually send that into as clean and high quality of a preamp that I can find. And right now I'm using a Universal Audio Aero, yeah, which is like their entry level thing, right? It wasn't cheap, but it sounds really, really nice. And I really like, which is the comp that I really like, Joey, not the 1176, the LA2A.
You like you like optical, slow, gushy.
That's kind of my favorite sound, and that's like I'm not super adept at recording. That's where I start, and then but usually I don't have to worry about it because Joey's either running the ship or Paul is running the ship or somebody incredibly competent is figuring it out. But that's a good place to start. And I mean, plugins are great too. Like if you can find a good B15 plugin, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, we use the Plugin Alliance B15, or actually nowadays we just use the flip top that Marty has graciously loaned to you. And
so much great gear from Marty.
So much great gear. We just recorded with Marty's Mutron last night. So
no way.
Yep.
How does it sound?
I don't know. I haven't heard it. I mean, I say we. I mean proverbially. Paul has been mixing the Lowell George project, and he said, "Hey man, do you have an envelope filter?" I said, "Yeah, I do. I have a Mutron, and then I have the Solid Gold Effects Funk Light." And I think he took a pass on both of those, and I imagine I'll hear it as soon as I hear the mix of that song.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
guys, I gotta say, I've been listening to the Lowell George mixes as they come in, as I have a privileged spot as the brother. And my God, do they sound good. You guys are going to love this record. I can't wait for you to put it out, Joe.
Man, I am so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. I've been up and down on that project. I think it means a lot to me, like emotionally. And I've been kind of terrified to finish it. I think I'm realizing. And the end of this month will mark 3 years since we started working on it. And but I think it's fun. I think it's not a straight up tribute, like it's not a note for note recreation. But there's a lot of things, there are a lot of moments that I borrowed from the original recordings or sort of took inspiration from and sort of ran with it. And I don't know, I think folks will dig it. There's a lot of vocals.
Perfect.
Perfect. I may have to release like vocal only mixes to the Patreon page or something. So you can dig into that.
Oh, that reminds me. I wanted to bug you. We should put together some stems too. People have been asking about that. Put a pin in that, and we can work on figuring that out.
Asking for stems?
Yeah, stems from the recordings. People just want to be able to mess around, I think. I don't have a problem with that. We can talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Please enjoy some delicious and inspiring coffee from Frankfurt. Ah, thank you.
Thank you, Steven.
What do you guys
Cheers.
Like on or off the road? I'm about to dig into the birth partner. My wife is about she's a handful of weeks out before our baby gets here, so I gotta bone up on some knowing. So I'm about to read that. So yeah. Yep. Dave, what are you reading?
I've been trying to finish the same book for over a year since my son was born, and I got through half a page today and feel pretty good about it.
Nice.
Yeah, I like fiction. Typically, I like books as a bit of an escape. So I typically like to fall into like a really great story, and I'm a real sucker for colorful imagery and great prose and wonderful storytelling. I'm reading a book called The Brothers K right now, and I love it. But yeah, it'll probably be another 10 years before I get through it because it's a pretty thick book. I will make a music book recommendation though. As we're talking about music, a book that has made such an impact on my life is Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner. So if anybody out there wants to check out a music book, and then the music lesson and then Zen of Guitar are another two that are sort of on that road of just like inspirational quasi Zen Buddhist music books, and I just adore them. Just adore them. So, and I don't know where my copy of Effortless Mastery is, because I've had a couple and I keep giving them out. So
I may have it. I have a copy of it somewhere, but I think I've lent mine out too. So maybe I lent yours out. Who knows? Yeah. I'm pretty sure my copy of Effortless Mastery is your copy of Effortless Mastery.
That could be possible. Pass it on to somebody. I know how it goes.
Yeah.
You want to grab any questions here? We got a bunch of good ones, Joe.
Jacob M has written. He's asked this question a couple of times. He's it's burning a hole in him. Any tips on making my slide playing more interesting? I'm 16. You and Ariel changed everything slide-wise for me. I have both your signature slides, and they were great for my pencil-thin fingers. Nice, Jacob. I'm happy for you. Having a slide that fits is kind of game changer.
A slide that fits like a one-fingered glove.
There's something weird about that idea. Just like a glove, but one finger at a time.
Yeah, it is weird.
Get cold. It's kind of hard to. That's a very vast question, because it's so subjective as to what you think is interesting. I think the place to start, if you're trying to move your slide playing along and you're kind of at an impasse, is just learning stuff and imitating folks. And the beauty about the slide is I think you can kind of wander into the territory of some other instruments a little bit easier. Vocalists being the obvious one that I think a lot of people take advantage of. So, see what happens if you transcribe some vocal melodies, and when you're doing that, don't just focus on the notes. The magical thing is how you get in and out of notes. That's what makes singing special. The way that you can express yourself a little freer singing than maybe on an instrument is little things like that. The details of how you get in a note. If you dip in a really short amount or a long slide into a note, or at the end of a note you wait a second before the vibrato starts, and then you let the note fall off at the end. Those little details are kind of the thing that makes stuff really, really, especially with slide, really special. So I would dig into some of those little details like that.
That is such a cool piece of like nugget of advice too. I've never heard you speak to that before, but man, that really resonates.
Cool.
I love that. And that's so true.
Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot about how to like play and sing expressively from listening to Donny Hathaway, because Donny just does the most amazing things. And I think he inspired a lot of singers in the way that he sang. And there's things that he does that are so special, but you really got to listen for them. Like things like he slows the vibrato down. Like if he's singing a soft note and he really wants to have it impact, he'll start the vibrato quickly and taper it off. Certain notes will be like a little tiny bit out of tune, either sharp or flat, and it never reads as pitchy. It just reads as like intention. So like when something's a tiny bit sharp, it kind of makes things feel excitable. It makes things feel immediate. It makes them feel
right.
It's equivalent to kind of playing ahead of the beat, where it just makes things feel like you're trucking along. And singing certain things a tiny bit flat will make something, especially a major third, for example, which really sweetens as if you sing it a tiny bit low, things like that. I learned a lot from listening to him sing, and try my best and fail most of the time to imitate him.
I think you do a pretty good job.
I mean, and the beauty is that in the process of trying to sound like somebody else, you'll never get there, but you'll probably find something cool of your own while you're doing it.
I just look at your questions and
Oh, Warren Macaulay. Did you see that? Throwing shade. You guys ever going to write a feel-good tune? Nah, get out of here, Warren. Nobody wants to hear happy songs. Nobody.
It's not what we do.
I wrote one of those once. I wrote a happy song once with you and Murray, Dave. And it was the only song other than Forgiveness that ever got played on the radio. And it's, I never play it. I never play it live. Yeah. People always ask for it. And there's like one person who's pumped to hear it. And then the rest of the time, people just want to hear sad songs.
Yeah. People like sad songs. We like singing sad songs.
Hell yeah.
We're here. Hey, all our sad friends, all our friends with all the complicated feelings, we're here for you and you're here for us. And that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a cool, I don't even know if this is a thing. I don't play slide, but I think this is a tip from Daniel McCann. Fit your slide better by taking a plastic thumb pick, breaking off the pick end, then shove the curved part in your slide and adjust for your finger.
Hey, that is a cool idea. If you've got a slide that's too big, give that a shot. Oh, I love this question because it's so hard to answer. The next one, Dave.
What is the key to your tone?
Pedal, guitar, bass. I think the key for me with anything is mainly if I'm trying something new, trying a new amp, trying a new guitar, trying a new pedal. And somebody asked me a similar question in an interview, and I had to think about it. But I thought, for me, when I play something new for the first time, the first thing I do is I play it with I don't play it with a pick. I just play it with my fingers, and I don't play it with a slide on. I feel like just kind of like getting a feel for the instrument, like almost wood wise, like what it wants to, how it kind of wants to be played. Because like you know this, Dave, like from your two Moulins to the Duesenberg to the red bass, you're not going to play those instruments the same way. You're not going to play the Duesenberg with the same touch that you play the red bass with.
No, not at all.
I play the Mulecaster completely differently than the way I play the Gold Top. And it's just, and it's, I mean, there's subtle differences. So I think the key for me is just trying to get in tune with whatever I'm playing. So I like to use this as an example with pedals, like a fuzz pedal, for example. My right hand, I lighten up my right hand so much because there's so much distortion and gain that comes out of a fuzz face circuit, for example, that if you play it super hard, you lose all the nuances of and all the subtleties that you can kind of milk out of it. So I lighten up my right hand right away. So I think the key for me is listening to the guitar, the pedal, the amp, and trying to make a decision based on what you think how it is going to respond best. I might even say how it wants to be played, although I'm not a big fan of, pretending that my guitar gives a shit. But not if you feel that way, that's great. That's just not my thing.
Great philosophical conundrum, Joey. Less equipment cases at higher weight, or more cases at lower weights? I don't think I understand. No, I get it. I do get it.
Less heavy. Yeah. I mean, you remember the big red case that we had for my Two Rock, where we had one big case for the head and cab instead of two smaller cases for the head and cab.
I hated that thing. But you know what I do like? This is a nuanced question, because one of my favorite pieces of gear is our stage box, which is gigantic and probably weighs 200 pounds, but you just roll that thing up to the stage, you take the front off, you take the back off, and she's ready to rock. So sometimes
less equipment, heavier.
Yeah.
I think also, you could run the risk of hurting yourself lifting a heavy case, but if you're lifting a ton of small cases, maybe there's an argument to be made there. You'll wear your joints out quickly.
You might wear out your shoes faster too. You gotta factor in the cost of new sneakers.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's $39.99 Canadian for a pair of new Chuck Taylors, and if you go through a pair of those puppies every tour, we're looking at $170 a year, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is the lifestyle impact. So good question.
Yeah, especially because I only make $170 a year. So.
Here's a cool question. Just rolled in from Caleb. Hey guys, love tuning into your streams and adore your music. Thanks, Caleb. Appreciate you. Just a quick question. When you guys listen to music, do you analyze every single aspect of the music, theory, chord, progression, etc., or is it possible for you guys to tune that knowledge out and just listen to the music for what it is? Thanks a lot. Preach, Joe.
Man, that's a great question. I don't know, man. I've been talking so much. You definitely you can definitely weigh in on that.
You definitely I think my musicianship has evolved as I get older and I play more music. I think the way I listen to music has evolved too, and a big part of it is influenced by that musicianship. So like how I play and the way I understand music and the way I grow to understand music, you learn to hear things differently, and music does definitely sound different to me, and I know that because I can listen back to records that I love from 15 years ago and they sound different now. They sound different to me because I'm a different person, because I think about different things, I care about different things, but they also sound different to me because I'm a different musician and I'm hearing things differently. I'm hearing production, or I'm hearing nuances in delivery or intention. So it definitely does. It definitely does affect it, and it's hard to say whether it's for better or for worse. There are times when I wish I could just listen to stuff like with kind of a blank canvas mind and not hear certain details, because I just want to I want to hear it as a whole, and that can be hard to do, like very deliberately, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's for me, I struggle listening to music a lot of times just because I spend so much of my life making music, thinking about making music, thinking about making music. So there's not a lot of room for me sometimes to just listen to music for enjoyment's sake. I will say this though. I find it really helpful to listen to music that's pretty far outside of my own idiom, because a lot of times, I just love this artist named Emily King, and I mean, I wouldn't say that she's there's absolutely no overlap maybe in the artistic Venn diagram, but it's a very drastically different type of music than the music that I make, and so when I listen to her music, for example, or classical music, I can't see myself in it necessarily. I can't necessarily. It's not true. It's not that I can't see myself in it, but I don't necessarily have an opinion of what I would do. I can't listen to a Bach chorale and go, when you go to the 5 chord, like it would be really great to like. No, I just take it in and I enjoy it. But I do have a hard time listening to music that's similar to my own without going like, I wonder if maybe maybe an extra harmony there would have been a little more effective, or maybe there's too many notes in that chord, or, like I have a really hard time doing that. And Paul and I had a conversation about that not too long ago. And just like, yeah, when you spend and he does a lot of mixing, which is very critical listening. So it's like, that adds another element when you listen to something and you go like, why is there so much 500 on that guitar part? Why didn't you cut that out or something, So there's a question here. I feel like I just want to interact with this from Ryan Verthane. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. He says, honestly though, seriously, sometimes the overwhelming, deep, feely songs are too much. I love these guys and the writing, but I'm like, your lies are awesome. Why all the downer content? But it's hard to say without sounding like an asshole, which I'd never intend. You don't sound like an asshole. I totally get it. And my answer to that is that music is very cathartic for me. And
Ditto.
And so the process of writing music I often write about things that I'm struggling with. I don't often write about things I'm not struggling with. And I think just like as a dude of a particular vintage, it's not always easy for me to, or it hasn't always been easy for me to express the way I feel about things. And music has been that for me. And so I think, I understand why it would be perceived as a lot of this music is downer, but that's not where it's coming from for us, because we're very happy, joyful people. And you're right, we have very great lives. I live a very privileged experience, and I'm aware of that as much as one can be. And but yeah, the music that we write is often because it's just one of the ways that I can express. I can sort of purge some of the things that I feel, and sometimes it's hard to put ideas and feelings into words, and it's a little easier for me to put them into song. And so that's kind of that's where that comes from. And I don't mean this at all in a shady way, but it's more about me than it is about you. You know what I mean? And I think the songs that I've written that live in a more positive zone are kind of hard for me to get behind, because I don't need to purge those feelings. If anything, I'm onto them, and I live them in my everyday life. And like a great example is that the whole record, Let It Lie, was very cathartic for me in terms of processing some heartbreak that I had gone through. And in the process of singing those songs every night, I was able to reconcile a lot of things. You know, and in order to deliver the song properly every night on stage, I had to go back to those times and feel those feelings and basically retell myself these stories over and over and over. And eventually you move on and it doesn't hurt so much anymore. So that's kind of where that comes from. I hope it didn't feel like I was being shady when I said it's about me and not you. Because obviously we put the music out in the world because we want people to enjoy it and we want people to receive it. But at the end of the day, I can only put forward what I feel like I can stand behind every day on stage. And it's hard for me to stand behind stuff that feels like I'm going to write a song because people have been saying that this stuff is kind of a downer. Like, man, I wish I could do that. And I know a lot of great writers who are able to transcend some of those things. But for me, it's a bit more of a visceral experience. I don't necessarily write for the sake of writing. I'm not a great writer. You know, like when it comes to like writing a nice letter to my wife or a Christmas card or a birthday card or something like that, I'm always like, hey, happy birthday, you old nardsack. You know, like I'm not a.
You need to try harder on those love letters. Oh boy.
Dear Anna, I love you so much. No. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't know. I feel like I'm talking around the point now, but
no, you're hitting it.
Yeah.
And I think what we've discovered, and I'm very cautious to speak for you, of course, but I just know this from our experience, is that for us to be able to get on stage and deliver something, we've got to feel it. And the songs that, and it is harder to connect to those songs because, I mean, like the real happy, like up tempo, feel good stuff is just like, we've never been able to connect to that stuff on stage. And every time we try and play that stuff, it just doesn't feel like us. And so to deliver it that way, you don't connect to it either as a fan. Like we've had that experience. This song that we're speaking of, that we spoke about earlier, like this one happy tune. Well, let's name the elephant in the room. The song's called Better Together. And I'm sure some of you probably dig that tune.
Yeah. And I love the recording of that song. It was so fun to make that song, but it's really hard to connect behind, you know?
And despite it being an up-tempo fun thing, it had a great chorus, I think, just like as choruses go, cool melody, bit of a hook. And we couldn't connect with that one on stage, and people did not connect with it in the audience. And we tried so hard because it's like, hey, it's the first like happy, uplifting song that we've written. It's got this nice positive message. And it fell flat until we cut it from the set list because we couldn't find a home for it. And
I think it does have more to do with us than it does with the song. Because Dan Runyon, our buddy Dan, has got to be used very upbeat. And that's true. It's a super upbeat song. It's very positive. You know, it's just a song about being in love with my wife. But I think there's something in there. It also just happens to be like a banger to play. It's so fun to play that song. So I think that there's part of that where like maybe I don't necessarily feel like I need to purge the feelings of being in love with my wife as much as it's just fun to kind of go, you know, like You know what I mean? I don't know. Anytime I sing out in the air while we're doing this, I feel like Celine Dion in the interview with Tom Power. Like, so Celine, how does it feel to, be in the like, I feel power. Anyway, oh my God, stop me.
No, don't stop. Joe and friends online. This is awkward, but we haven't left the house. We've been in complete isolation for like going on 2.5 months. And so we order our groceries, and the guy who's shopping for me right now is texting me about my groceries. So Joey, can you carry this conversation for 1 second? Because he's blowing up my text messages right now. So I should really pay attention.
Or G. Okay, all right.
My apologies, Joe.
That's fine. You do your thing. Aaron Sternke, my buddy from the West Coast. Also, like when I'm sad and I listen to a sad song, I relate to. It makes me less sad. I think that's true. When you're sad, it often makes you feel kind of alone, kind of isolated. And when you hear somebody talking about how they're feeling, and maybe they're feeling the same way, it makes you feel like you're not alone. So, yeah, that's why representation is important. I would not describe your music as negative or downer. I always come away from your music feeling better. Awesome, and I'm glad that you feel that way, and I certainly feel like that's kind of what we're after. Making the music that we're making is just to try to share the thing, part of the things that make us human, which is these incredibly nuanced emotional things. So yeah, I'm gonna go back through some questions here and see if I can find some guitar nerd. Hi guys. Oh, here we I would like to learn more about music theory, harmony, etc. Any book or video recommendations? I don't particularly have any off the top of my head, but maybe we can get some friends commenting some of their favorite sort of resources for music theory, particularly harmony, that might help somebody kind of get a start on some basic harmony stuff or theory.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, Joe.
You're back. That's all right.
It's all good. I'm making cookies, so I just want to make sure I got the right things.
You're making cookies?
I'm gonna make some. I'm gonna try and make Mom's oatmeal cookies.
Oh man, Mom's oatmeal cookies are the best. Oh, Caleb Bourgeois says Chord Chemistry by Ted Green. Yes, that's an amazing book. It's pretty. I certainly wouldn't say that that's a beginner book, just because it's so exhaustive, and it's also guitar specific. But a wonderful, wonderful book. Ted Green, the greatest.
I just want to rip back, and I hate to bail on that last conversation like that. I'm so awkward. I feel terrible. But Ryan, I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for sparking that conversation. That was a really cool comment / question, and it was really fun to riff on that. So appreciate you bringing that up.
Yep.
I like this one. This is fun. Trevor, the year is. I'm gonna read it in my most dramatic voice. The year is 2052. Guitars of every variety have been banned by the Galactic Empire. However, the Empire are fans of Vintage Bros records and have demanded you create them in full song guitar. What instruments do you use? Lightsabers. Like strum one chord on a lightsaber, cut off all your fingers.
I was just gonna say, strum chord on lightsaber amputates fingers. Only capable of giving up.
Man, 1 million points for creativity, Trevor. Thank you.
Can I use my Hammond organ?
Yeah, go nuts.
I would do that. Mike Carbone goes, you guys got the Luddies set up in the studio? What's the drum booth look like? I don't even think I've seen it yet. I don't have the Ludwig set up in the drum booth. I'm too afraid to play the drums. But Mikey, as soon as this lockdown, as soon as we're out, you come visit and you come play my drums for me.
Mike Carbone sent me a gift bag the other day for the holidays, and it had some really nice. Mike also isn't. Mike's an incredible drummer. Obviously, you've seen him play with us. But he also runs a beauty supply shop, and they send stuff. So he sent me all this really nice swag.
Oh man, Mikey, it was the sweetest present. Like he got some baby specific stuff. He sent us one too. He gave us like some masks, some hand sanitizer, some hair products, some baby stuff. He also gave me a check for $1,500. I can't believe it. I'm just kidding. What, you didn't get a check for $1,500 from Mike either? Oh, weird. He must like me more.
Okay, Joe, you want to play some organ? Is it this question? Is this what's making you want to play organ?
No. It was just it was the year is 2052. What instrument do you play? And I was on there, yeah. When you're arranging vocal parts, how do you go about deciding on chord inversions? I'm really stuck on having some basic thirds and fifths and want to make things more spicy. Awesome question. I mean, there's so much to be done with just thirds and fifths on top of a melody. You know, I don't think you can really exhaust your options, to be honest. I would explore. I would just explore as much of the voice leading as you can. You know, targeting. One thing that I do often suggest to people is when you're just getting started and you're trying to make a plan. If you aim to use only the 1, 4, and 5 chords initially, so coming up with harmony, like harmonizing a melody using the 1, 4, and 5 chord, will give you some really nice workable boundaries. Because I think a lot of times when we start to try to arrange things, especially if you're not necessarily arranging things on paper or on an instrument, it can kind of feel like you're sort of floating out in the middle of space, and you know, you don't really have a whole lot around you. So I'll actually give you a quick sort of little tutorial on kind of how I approach this, and then we can talk about a couple of different things that you can do to make your chords a little bit more interesting. If you take the melody for Happy Birthday, which is a deceptively hard song to harmonize in 3 parts, this is how I approach this. So I take the melody for Happy Birthday and I analyze it as it sits in the major scale. So it starts on the 5 of the major scale. I think I'm in D in this guitar. Yeah, D-ish. Starts on 5, and the melody goes 5, 5, 6, 5, 1, 7, 5, 5, 6, 5, 2, 1. So we'll keep it there. Then I ask myself the two sort of questions. The questions are, of the 3 triads, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, which note from the melody fits in? And then the next question is, which inversion has that note in it? Either, I mean, I'm aiming to have the melody on the top of the harmony, so the two harmony notes will be underneath. You can put it anywhere. You can put it on the bottom. You can put it in the middle. But we'll just, for simplicity's sake, we'll put it on top. So I'll ask myself, which note in the key of D, or which chord has an A in it? Well, the 1 chord does, D, F sharp, A. But then so does the 5 chord, E, A, C sharp. So I have to decide which chord I want to have that note sort of fit in. I'll just sort of give the cheater. I'm going to pick the 1 chord just for the sake of keeping it really nice and round. I want to establish the harmony. So there's my first chord is going to be the 1 chord. Then the next note in the melody is the 6. And then I ask which chord has the 6 in it, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, or the 5 chord. The letter name is B. So it's either D major, G major, or A major, because I'm using 1, 4, and 5. The only one of those chords that has a B or the 6th in it is the 4 chord, and that's the 3rd. And then the inversion that has the 3rd on top, because I'm aiming to have the melody on top of the chords for this exercise, is the 2nd inversion. So I'll go through that kind of painstakingly, 1 note in the melody at a time. And what I end up with is, I cheated at the end and used the 2 minor chord, but I aim initially to harmonize using just those major triads, because again, it gives me some workable boundaries to make it feel like I'm not floating out in the middle of nowhere. And then as you get a little bit more comfortable with that as an idea, and you feel like you've got a little bit more of an idea of where things are kind of sitting, then you can start to experiment with adding. I saw somebody's Caleb said try adding extensions. So things like a 9, which is enharmonic, is the 2, so it's the same note as the second note of the scale. You can use the 6th as well. Those are pretty common notes to add to a major triad. But when you're adding things, my kind of rule for adding notes to harmony is if I'm going to add a note to one chord, I have to have a plan for where that note goes to the next chord and the next chord and the next chord. I won't often add a 4th note to a harmony unless I'm ready to do the whole thing in 4-part, or if I have a particular idea of making that one chord pop. So that's kind of how I use in the context of our music, which is it makes the most sense to harmonize things mainly triadically. And just because I think sort of that fits in the idiom most sort of appropriately. But then I'll add things like a 6, like make a major 6 chord, which is also the same as the minor 7, like Marty pointed out earlier. And those kind of things, like I did a lot of that on Hindsight, and you can hear these kind of almost barbershop sounding chords, and I would add in those notes to kind of make these chords kind of pop out and sort of get your attention. I wouldn't add notes to chords unless I want to get your attention, unless I want you to go, hey, what's going on there? Oftentimes harmonies are very they're really cool to hear, but they're also very structural. So there's something very practical about the job that it does. So I pick my moments when I want it to kind of stick out and that. Marty, the bass player, says always the minor 4th on the person's name in Happy Birthday. Anyway, so that's my madman's rant. I've been meaning to maybe make a video about that because I think that that could be really helpful for some folks. But anyway,
yeah, maybe we'll do some more sort of instructional type stuff over on our Patreon page at some point.
Come on. I will add, I love me a minor 6 chord on the 4 minor. If you're gonna do the 4 minor, make it a minor 6. If you want a little extra spice, it's a very, very nice.
Joey Landreth telling you how to spice up your life. It's not that hard.
All you need is a
flat 6 on your minor chord
and a major 6.
Yep. I think I should get going. I know my kid is up, and I'm very excited to hang out with him this afternoon from his nap. These live streams are timed very selfishly to coincide with Finn's nap on Saturdays. We typically spend Saturdays hanging out, just the 3 of us, my wife and Finn and I. So I sneak away while he's snoozing and hang out with you folks. But once he's up, I'm pretty eager to go and hang out with him too. Do we want to take maybe just one more question, Joe, and then call it a wrap?
Yeah, I want to. This alchemistical adventures I was particularly moved by your reference to blame it on your dad in whiskey. Any comment, or is that too personal or sensitive? No, not at all. That lyric, that song was written mainly about my own alcoholism, but it was also sort of looking at like behaviors that people who are addicted to things will often do, and I had so many friends sort of talk about their own addiction and find other people to lay the blame for the things that they were doing on, and that's where that came from. So that's not necessarily me blaming it on my dad, but it was just something that, and I kind of felt like it was in the midst of all of this, like sort of imagery and metaphor that is kind of in that tune, having something so like so plain spoken as, it's not your fault, just blame it on your dad. So you can feel all right about feeling bad. I just felt like it was very like kind of rooted the lyric a little bit in some sort of very clear. I don't know. I try pretty hard not to sound too smart because I'm not really that smart,
That's bull. Don't go saying that. Cool. Yeah. Great answer. Great question.
Do you want to take one? Do you want to take one more before you go? You got to go.
No, we'll do one more here. Let me see. Let me go back. Oh, Killer says, lovely to see your faces and hear your voices in real time. Miss you both. You too. Miss all of you guys out there. Miss playing for you and seeing you. There's so many good questions. It's hard to pick one. A lot of comments. Looking for a question. Okay, you know what? Lots of great questions. I'm going to just say one thing. I'm just going to go on a little mini rant. Can I? On the topic of music?
Do whatever you want.
Okay. So something I've been thinking about a lot lately, as creative people, and this is like my personal philosophy on a lot of things too, is a lot of people out there are sitting with whatever it is that they love to do, and they're wondering about whether it has value, whether it's good. Is it good enough? Is it, am I good enough? And I kind of want to challenge you, if you're sitting in this place, to maybe rethink that question. And I think it's really great to get some feedback, and we all need a certain amount of affirmation or validation in our lives, because it's a big scary world out there, and it's hard to know that you're on the right path, and it helps to know that people are believing in you and what you're doing. But what I've learned from my short time as a creative and an artist is that we need to trust ourselves, trust our intuition, trust our ears, trust our spirit, our soul, whatever it is, your juju. That should be the thing that guides you to make the things that you make and love. And don't get too bogged down in comparison. Be curious, be gentle with yourself, but know that you will decide, and you are the ultimate and last person that you need to impress, whatever you're doing. If it's valuable to you, if you think it's great, if you love it, then mission accomplished. You've done it. Don't get too bogged down in what other people think. Don't worry about it. You just do you. Try and light that spark. And if you do, then you've achieved it. And if you haven't, keep looking, keep searching. I've watched a lot of people recently get lost in trying to make things to please other people, trying to make art, music, sounds to please other people, when I feel like at the end of the day, just got to please you. Just got to please your own ears. You know what I mean?
100%.
Little vague potentially, but just want to send that out into the universe.
I think it's good. The timing on it is good, because I think it's really, really easy to get lost in that comparison that you mentioned, because that's what social media is just this constant onslaught of all the cool shit that everybody else is doing. And it's really easy to go thumbing through your Insta feed or fall down that YouTube rabbit hole and kind of compare what other people are doing against what you're doing, and find yourself devaluing your own thing. And I think something that I have been focusing on a lot lately in the last year of my life is just what my intention is behind making music and making art. My actual intention is solely to just make something. That's it. And if people like it, I'm so grateful, and I'm very fortunate. If people don't like it, that's fine also. And I think there's something very freeing in letting go of, we talked about it a couple weeks back. Like, it's not about making something good. It's not about making something excellent. It's not about making something efficient. It's just about making something. That the act of creating something is a a very, very, very big part of the human experience. And that's what attracts people, I think, to art. It's just human creativity, how interesting it is. You know, how I hear a chord and decide to play over it is going to be completely different to you because you have this whole life experience of listening to particular types of music and particular players and listening to music in a different way. And you're going to make different choices. That in and of itself is fascinating. And so I think your rant is very well timed and very well placed. And just remember that, you know, it's about making something. It's not about anything else.
Yeah, I love that. Just make it.
Just make it.
Make it, and then make the next thing.
If you make it and you don't like it, throw it away or scavenge it for pieces. We do that all the time. We write songs all the time that we don't like, and we find ourselves going, oh, you know what would be perfect for this new thing we're working on was all those verses from that other tune were total garbage, but that bridge was so dope. Let's grab that bridge and turn that into a verse for another song. I mean, we've done that in songs that we've released, you know, like there's been like, I don't think anybody really listens to that song. We'll borrow this verse or that lyric. It makes more sense. Or sometimes we borrow things because it just sort of ties things in together. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? I don't know.
You know what? I know I said I was going to sign off, but I just want to comment on this last thing. Indie game dev. Man, I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling beat up. This is such a crazy time for everybody, and I don't know what your story is, but I'm just sorry to hear that. Sounds like it's a bit of a grind. But I think the thing that I really love here is that right on the bottom it says, the best I can do is noodle on the guitar, which is a win most days. And that is the thing that I love about music more than anything, is that if you pick up that guitar for 30 seconds once a week and it gives you a little bit of life, even for a second, even if it's just a brief reprieve from a life that is otherwise torment, pain, whatever, that is what's so great about music. It gives. It only gives. When it's just you and your guitar and no expectation and no pressure to do anything, you're noodling, you are tapping into the most pure expression of joy that there is. It is so unadulterated, it is childlike, and it is exactly why we call it playing music. So it sounds like you're going through a rough patch, but man, that sounds to me like you're using music for medicine. And I'm not a doctor, but I think you're onto it. Yeah. I think you're onto it.
Yeah, I mean that is sort of encapsulates exactly what I was saying. Like it doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if you're going to release it. It doesn't matter if anybody hears it. Just making something, and sometimes all you're making is noodle soup, man.
Yeah, and chicken noodle soup is very good for you.
Chicken noodle soup for the soul, right? Wasn't it?
How did we get here? Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
Hey, yeah, I just want to say, hey, Dan, much love, bros. Much love to all of you. So nice hanging out with you and chatting and taking your questions. We love doing this. We're going to try and do this every week. We're going to try and line up a guest for next week so we can not just say the same things we always say, but we're happy to do that too. Yeah, Joey, send us off.
What do I want to say? These are incredibly difficult times with everything that's going on with the pandemic and socially and politically, and you know, just be kind to each other as best you can, and don't forget to take big, nice, long, deep breaths. And at the end of the day, if all you can muster is getting up and getting out of bed, mission accomplished. This is a very, very extreme time, and it's not typical. Dave, you said that to me a few months ago, and I think I was kind of at a low point. Was like, man, I just need to get back to normal. And you were like, but it's not normal. It's not normal right now, and it's okay for it not to be normal. So just be kind to yourself, be kind to other people, and shit. Love you guys. Love everybody.
Love you, brother. Love you, folks. See you next week.
We will see you next week. Karate in the Garage with Dave and Joe. Later, y'all.